back in the 1950s, or perhaps a little earlier, there was a Secret Service film that was produced as propaganda in order to build support for the Secret Service. Now, there was a young boy who watched this film, and what happened in the film was that the Secret Service agent takes a bullet for the president. Now, the boy who saw this film was so enthralled by this that he decided that he was going to become a Secret Service agent himself. And he ended up going and actually becoming one and getting to work for the president. And this is the first thing that came to mind when I received the prompt, curling. Now, what curling means to me in this case is that we need to go the distance. Because even though it's not typically seen as one of our more go-getter events, as it were, in order to win, you still have to go the distance. And I completely agree with this, because if we do not go the distance for others around us, then no one will go the distance for them. And we're going to be seeing this through three main points of analysis. First, we'll be seeing this through a famous historical person. Then, we'll be looking at this through a book. And then finally, we'll be looking at this through a recent movie. So let's look to our famous person, Winston Churchill. We shall fight on the landing grounds and on the beaches. We shall fight, but we shall never give up. We shall never surrender. Winston Churchill, a phenomenal public speaker and a phenomenal leader. When Germany was encroaching on Europe and the rest of the civilized world, as it were, Winston Churchill was one of the few individuals who managed to hold it together and go the distance. Because if he had not gone the distance, if he had not kept himself together in order to fend off against Hitler until the United States came into the war, which he continually pleaded for them to come in, but he kept going until they did. However, it was because he held his ground, it was because that he continued to fight against Nazi Germany, that Nazi Germany was eventually able to be defeated, and freedom was able to continue throughout the world. Now, if Winston Churchill had not done this, we would probably have a much heavier influence in our world today from Nazi Germany. And so because of this, Winston Churchill going the distance has greatly benefited each and every single person in this room today. Now let's look to our book. Artemis Fowl, the series, is about a young boy who is extremely brilliant. This child of 12 years old has the mind of someone far beyond his years. In fact, the majority of times when he goes to have his works published, he actually has to do this under a false identity because no one would believe that the ideas and the brilliance coming from this person could come from a child. Now, during his adventures and his time, he ends up having an adventure with the fairy people who are in the book series. Now, Artemis is trying to get as much gold as he can from the fairies because his father has been kidnapped. And he's trying to find his father, and his father is the most important thing in the world to him. And so he has to go through a whole bunch of trials and tribulations in order to get the gold from the fairies and outwit them and ultimately get that gold. And he ultimately gets his father back. And it's because he goes the distance here that he's able to get his father back, that he's able to set his world to rights. And so if this had not happened, then Artemis would undoubtedly never have gotten the peace that he got from having his world reordered. And finally, we're going to be looking at this through the new movie, Haunter. Now, the main character is a young girl, about 15, 16 years old. And as you progress throughout the story, you find out that she's actually a ghost. Now, what makes this interesting is that there's a series of ghosts throughout this timeline that are interacting with each other, and it's only through her actions that they're able to be released. And at one point later in the film, she ends up having to make a tough decision in order to choose whether or not she's going to go off with the rest of her family to be released, or if she's going to stay behind to allow the other ghosts to be able to be relieved as well. She chooses to relieve the other ghosts, and it's because she makes this choice to go the distance that she ultimately benefits them.